Okay, so we are moving on, and this time we will build the services section. I already designed and built it, so this is the final outcome. But now let me just move it to the side, and I want it to be here just as a reference. And a couple of things we need to do before we proceed. The first thing is that I forgot to mention the properties for the text, for the main heading of the work section. So as you can see, the size is 72 pixels and the weight is medium, and of course the font is outfit. Another important thing we need to keep in mind, and it's a good practice to remember, is to wrap our content in a container. So right now we have, as you can see from the left panel, from the layers panel, we have the work section, and inside of it we have top and grid sections. So what we want to do is to wrap these two, top and the grid section, in a container, in a stack, which we will call container. Just like this. Let's name it container. And the next thing that is important to do is to set a max width of this container. So the first thing we need to find out is the width of this container in pixels. So we need to go to width from the right panel and change it to fixed, and then we can see it's 1280. So we want to use this number and apply it to the max width property. 1280 pixels. 1280 pixels, not percentage. Just like this. And let's see the preview. As you can see, it doesn't go over 1280 pixels. It doesn't expand, because if I were to cancel the max width property to remove it, we will see that everything here will expand. Just like this. So that's not something I want. So that's not something I want, and that's the reason I'm going to use the max width property. And also it helps us later with the breaking point and responsiveness. So that's out of the way. Now we can move on to build the services section. Okay, as you can see, we have two sections that are very similar, but before that, if you noticed, as I added another stack, the container stack, the gap between items has changed, because we applied it to the work section, to the work stack. So as you can see right here, the gap says 64 pixels. And the gap in container says 10 pixels, which is the distance between top and grid sections. So we want to increase that to 64. Just like before. So now we can move on. So as you can see, these two sections, they have exactly the same elements. The top elements, the top sections look exactly the same. So we can just duplicate the section right here and paste it below instead of recreating it. So I'm just going to copy it, Control+C, select the page and paste it. And I'm going to change the title to services, and I have the text right here. You can add any text you want. This is the text I'm going to use. And just like that, saves me a lot of time. So the next thing we're going to do is to create this image. So we'll press F on the keyboard and click, drag and release just like that. But we want to make sure that we are in our page, that we are inside, that we are doing it on the page. So if not, just cut it and paste it just like I did right now. So I'm going to name this frame image, and I'm going to set the width to fill and the height to 400 pixels. And and now let's change the fill color to an image. So let's click on the far right icon right here, and then we'll go to plugins, Unsplash, and search for liquid gradient. There it is. Now let's select top and image layers and add them into a stack. Control-Alt-Enter. Let's name the stack services. The next thing we're going to do is to select the top stack and the image and add them into another stack, which we will call container. And now let's select services and add a general padding of 80 pixels, just like that. Now let's select container and change the gap to 64. And then we'll set a max width of 1280 pixels, just like we did with the work section. Now let's select the image and add a 16 pixels radius. Now we need to add this part right here, our list. So let's see how we can do it. Let me take a sip of my coffee, my decaf coffee. And now let's move on. So let's press T on the keyboard, and inside our container or inside our services, or inside the services section, let's click and then type, for example, product design. Now the color is black, so it's by default. So let's change it to white, and then let's change the font to outfit. And let me see the properties. Let me see the properties of this text. It's 42. It's 42 pixels, just like that. And we can change that to, no, let's leave it at regular. The weight will be regular. Let's move this down and make sure it's inside the container stack. And I'll add this text right here. I'll add it right here. Let me just duplicate this text layer and double click and then paste the text. And as you'll remember from our previous lesson, we can copy the properties, the styles of this text layer and paste it into the layer we just created. So let's right click and then copy style. And then right here, right click and paste style. Now let's duplicate this layer again and let's change the text to 01. Let's change the font size to 14 pixels. Move this up and duplicate this one. And then let's change the text to, for example, UX flows. And then duplicate again and change this to UI interfaces. Duplicate once more and change this to prototyping. You can change the text to whatever you want. This is the example I'm using. So let's select all of these three texts and place them inside a stack, which we will call tags. And let's place the description, let's place it inside a stack, which we will call content. And then let's add these two, the tags plus content, add these two together into a stack, which we will call bottom. Now let's select the product design text and the number, and let's use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Alt-T to place them inside a new stack, which we will call top. Now let's insert a new icon from the insert panel, and I'll choose this library. I'll change the color to white, and I'll search for minus. And now let's place minus and product design into a new stack, which we will call heading. Let's change the direction property inside the top stack to horizontal, and also inside the heading stack to horizontal. Let's change the position, and now let's select the product design text and change the width to fill. The next thing we're going to do is to select the number and change the width to fill, but instead of 1 FR, let's change it to 0.3 FR. Just like that. And let's select our heading stack and change the width to 3 FR. We'll do the same thing here at the bottom. So we're going to select the bottom stack and change the direction to horizontal. Then we'll select the tags stack and change the width to 0.3 and make sure it is fill and not fit content. And also we need to change the alignment to the left side. Now let's select this text in content and change the width to fill, and let's select the content stack and change the width to 3FR, just like that. So now what we want to do is to select the top and bottom stacks and place them inside a new stack, which we will call accordion. Now let's select the top and bottom stacks again and add them into another stack, which we will call service item. And then we can right click on service item and create a component. Let's call this service item. I will call it service item 1 because I already have service item, and click create. So the first thing we want to do here is change variant 1 into open. So we can double click on the layer's name and change it to open. So this is the open state. Okay, let's change the width of the number. Instead of 0.3 FR, let's change it to 1, and we'll give it a max width property of 320 pixels. And we will do the same for our tags stack. So 1 FR and max width of 320 pixels. Yeah, it looks much better in my opinion. So now we're going to build the closed state. So we can just duplicate this variant by using the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+D, and then change the name from the layers panel to closed. So the first thing we'll do is to change the icon from minus to plus. There we have this icon right here. And we need to select the bottom stack, and let's change the visible property to no instead of yes. So in our closed state, we only have the number on the left, product design, and the plus icon. So now let's select the open variant, and you see this icon right here, connect to navigate. Let's click and drag it all the way, the short way to closed, and make sure the interaction is on click. Just like that. And let's do the opposite by selecting the closed variant and using the same icon, connect to navigate, back to the open variant. Just like this. So we have two directions. Let's preview. As you can see, it's working. So now we only need to duplicate it and change the texts. So we want to make the text dynamic. So let's see how we can do it. So if we'll duplicate it, it's just the same text repeating itself, and we don't want that. We want the ability to change the texts dynamically. So each service item will have its unique texts. So let's see how we can get it done. But before we create our variables for our text to make it dynamic, let's add a top border for this service item. So we'll choose the open variant, and from the right panel, let's click on border and then select a white color with a 15% opacity, and let's click this icon right here, and let's set everything except the top to 0. So now the border it feels too tight with our content. So let's add a padding. So let's add a top padding and a bottom padding of 32. Let's see how it looks if we'll duplicate the items. Looks pretty good. So now let's make our text dynamic. So what we want to change, what we want to control is the number and these tags, and of course the title and the description. So the first thing we're going to do is select the number, and from the right panel we'll click on content next to the text itself, content, and create a variable and select plain text. So if we'll go back to our home page, you can see we can select our service item, and right here we can change the number to anything we want, just like that. But instead of amount, let's change that to a number, which makes more sense. So we'll do the same process to the rest of our text. So UX flows, create variable plain text. We can name this tag number 1, this one tag number 2, this one tag number 3, so this one could be title, and this one could be description. And let's click yes on the text area option. So now let's go back to the home page and see what we've accomplished. So as you can see, everything here can be changed. The numbers, the tags, the title, and the description. So the next thing we're going to do is to duplicate service item 4 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's change the variant of the duplicated service items to closed. And let's see it in action. So now let's make this animation feels smoother. So let's see how we can do it. So let's go back to our component, and from the right panel, we'll click on spring and change the time to 0.55 and the bounce to 0.1. Now let's select our accordion stack, and from the right panel, click on the plus icon in effects and add flow. Click on spring, and let's change the timing to 0.55 and the bounce to 0.1. Let's hit preview, Ctrl+P, and see what changed. So as you can see, we have a smoother animation. Perfect. Now the last part we need to add is this one right here. It's very simple. So let's just click on T and create a new text layer and let's type something. For example, need something specific. I offer custom solutions to. And let's add a button. We already have a button right here. We can just use it. We can copy it and paste it here. Let's change the text in the button to book a call. And let's select the text and the button, but before that, let's change the layer's name to book a call button. So let's select both of these and use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-Alt-T to create a new stack, which we will call bottom. And let's place it on the bottom, not in accordion, but inside the container stack. Let's change the direction to horizontal and the distribute property to space between. So now I want to change the properties of the text on the left. So, okay, it's white with 60% opacity. White with 60% opacity. And let's give it a max width property of 200 pixels. Yep. And we can make this button round, or we can just leave it with 8 pixels of radius. And let's add an icon. Let's add this one. So we'll go to the insert panel and let's have this one inside the button. And let's search arrow. And let's see where we can find it. Here it is, arrow upright. And let's change the width and height to 22 pixels. Now let's see a preview of our website. We can use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+P, and there we have it. So what we've built so far is the hero section, the work section, and now we have the services section. The animation looks nice, works smoothly, and I think it looks great. But I have one more thing that I want to fix before moving on. So I want to fix this text right here because there's a gap between the text, as you can see, the ending of this text and the right side of the top stack. So I want to close this gap. So I'll select the text and remove the balance property. And also I want to change the max width to 280 pixels. So right now it looks much better. Yes, it looks great, consistent, and as you can see, no gaps. So that's it for today's lesson. I'll see you in the next one.